So it's college baseball time. It's right around the corner, and why not get you ready for the season with three great coaches? She's Dani Wexelman. I'm Daron Sutton from the ABCA in Nashville, Tennessee. This is another edition of Perfect Game College Baseball. So deep. Butch Thompson, Auburn, he's going to join us. Tyler Johnson, brand new head coach at McLennan Community College in Waco, Texas, by Chip and Joanna Gaines. That's where that program is. Oh, by the way, they win it all a lot. And then Jim Schlossnagle, Texas A&M. You got two Texas coaches. You got lucky, two really good conversations.
Yeah, baseball in Texas is thriving. We all know that. That's really obvious. So I'll start with Tyler Johnson. You said it. He's coming into the head coaching role, taking over a huge responsibility, but he's been with that program for a couple of years now. So he knows the ins and outs. He knows his players. He knows how junior college works. They've been to the World Series. Like, they've won it. They've had a taste of that. And so he knows what it takes to get back on that path. He knows what the competition is going to be like. And we also talked about coming up here really soon, back-to-back years going to the College Baseball Classic in Panama City Beach. You were there last year to cover it. And what that does, how that sets the table for his season, the kind of competition they want to be playing early and how they want to make their schedule difficult. So then when they get later in the season, they can find a lot of confidence with their team. But he's really excited. I think that he's a great future, a great face and a great leader of the game for his team. And I know he's stoked to take over there.
Yeah, Schloss at Texas A&M is always fun. Look, the players at McLennan dream someday about playing for Schloss. That's how it works.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, we dove into some of those high caliber players that he does have on his team. One of them you and I know so well, Austin Boast. And Austin Boast earning the 12th man uniform this year. That's something that Coach Schloss took from the football team. We know how important the 12th man is to Texas A&M, the fans, that extra man on the field, right? And so Austin Boast is going to wear that number this season. He earned that right. And this team, last year they pulled from the transfer portal. It was something we really hadn't seen before. What he did his first season at A&M, takes his team all the way to the College World Series, a Final Four appearance, the farthest that team has ever made it. And it's really a testament to Coach Schlossnagle and what he's done for the program, where it's going. He's excited about this season and the players he's got, but he got his little taste of the SEC, and I think that he wants more and he can do more. But man, he's such a good leader. He's so insightful, and also the president of ABCA this year. So we dove in as well to what their goals are, what their hopes are for the game, and where it's going.
Yeah, so Butch Thompson, I played against him in college, a small college in Alabama. I have known him for an awful long time, and he's such an interesting man, and he too, like you're talking about, Schloss, took his team to the College World Series. As a matter of fact, over the last 4 active years, he's been there twice, so doing great things on the Plains. And I really wanted to check in with him on Ike Irish, who's from Michigan, not from Alabama, Orchard Lake, St. Mary's. He caught Brock Porter, who's a high prospect. But Ike Irish was a PG All-American as well. The little tidbit he shares, I'll go ahead and spoil it for you. Ike Irish was Auburn, voted on by the players fall MVP, the most valuable player as a freshman, his first steps onto campus. 3 great conversations. We'll check in on Ike while we check in on Auburn right around the corner. Let's start it on the Plains, my conversation with Butch Thompson. Dani and I, glad you're hanging out with us on Perfect Game College Baseball. So selfishly, kind of the ties that bind Butch Thompson and I, the head coach at Auburn, go back a long ways. We were kind of small college guys a generation and a half ago. We're not getting any younger. So it's fun as I'm in this space and you're in this space to reconvene to talk about your Auburn baseball team. And for you, it's kind of like you never left the great state of Alabama with so many different journeys you've had at Huntington and at Birmingham Southern. For you, there's a lot of pride of being an Alabama guy and kind of a lifer within that state, yes?
Yeah, I mean, the stories we talk about playing baseball is last century stuff.
That's
right?
true.
Last century. But then just the evolution. And, I'm a Mississippi boy and had a little time in Georgia, but really the most professional time I've spent has been in the state of Alabama. And I've been so fortunate and blessed. And, basically I'll go back to my wife, Robin. So we've been married 28 years. And basically she said, hey, you can do this baseball thing. You can coach wherever you want to. You just have to stay in a 3.5-hour radius for mom and dad.
Wow.
So, I would like to say I have credit for our journeys, but it's really Robin kind of fencing me into Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. But it's kind of kidding, but we've been blessed to be able to stay in a region that we love, and so many relationships of guys like competing against one another back in the day and then getting to 2023 getting to sit down and talk baseball again. What a beautiful sport.
Yeah, it's a wonderful journey. When we look back on how we were both brought up through the sport, where we've gone in different directions. When we were young, we'd always look at either mom or dad and ask them either about Santa Claus or heaven or things that we didn't quite understand. I'm going to do that with you about Omaha because I've never been. Now, I went to Lewiston, Idaho as a player, but that's different. You've been to Omaha a couple of times as a coach. You understand, and you were just there in 2022. So like that little boy who looks and asks his dad and says, Daddy, what's Omaha like? What is Omaha like?
Yeah, it's our baseball heaven. It's not equivalent to heaven from a faith standpoint, but just it's the pinnacle, and it's the best foot forward. And if you haven't been there and you respect our game it is a great place to be. And just the traditions, the histories of going and playing at Rosenblatt, being at the University of Georgia, that's when it became a pinnacle for me.
Yeah.
And then getting an opportunity to go back and play for a national championship, even though losing it at Mississippi State to a great UCLA team led by John Savage, it just fuels the fire even more. Skip Berkman is somebody in our footprint. Ron Polk is somebody in our footprint. Auburn's all-time leadingest head coach, Hal Baird, was somebody in our footprint that made you aspire, but you didn't know what Omaha was, right? It was a dream. But when you kind of like get your cleats in the dirt, takes it to another level. And then my wildest dreams, it's always the goal, but getting to be a head coach in the SEC, but then getting to coach and have your team show up in Omaha, because as a head coach at Auburn, before we went, it took us 2 or 3 years to go. Those 2 or 3 years, I was always on the All-American committee. So I have to go every year to Omaha, whether my team goes or not. And that's when it gets tough. But then to be able to take a team there is like none other. And then to win the game there is even more exhilarating. But really getting to watch players get to fulfill a childhood dream and get to experience something where you tell them, hey, you really want to keep fighting and go to Omaha. It's special. And then them getting to experience it makes it pretty neat. And then it's wrapped around Father's Day. In 2019 was the first Father's Day since my dad had passed, and that's a special day when you're opening up and getting to play in Omaha, and it's a Father's Day deal. And he never got to see me as a head coach, and you think about all those things, but really all the fathers and sons that are coming from all over America. It's still one of those stories that need to be told, where there's a pilgrimage of fathers and sons every Father's Day, and that's why I wanted to stay in Omaha, be in Omaha. I know it's a long-term contract, but there's so many features. We do travel ball there now by the hundreds. And the city of Omaha is second to none as far as believing, continuing to pour in, and making that a special event.
Hey, you've been to 2 of the last 3, my friend. 2 of the last 3, and spoiling your fans. That's the goal, though, right? To spoil your supporters and to give your athletes great reasons to have reunions for generations to come. Last year, your staff, because of the extensive postseason, threw close to 600 innings. You struck out close to 700. You guys missed a ton of bats last year. Now, you sent quite a few off into pro baseball, and deservedly so. But is there some sort of a pitching philosophy, philosophically, if you could speak on behalf of how you ideally approach pitching as an organization? I know all arms are different. I was one of those. You understand that too. But is there a philosophy, kind of a mantra that your pitchers try and live by?
Yeah, I think when I first started coaching, it was like I knew the recipe for everybody, and I told you what was wrong with your delivery. And just some real critical mistakes that if as a young coach listening that they would hear. Basically, I got down to where I understood this is everybody's finding their own individual identity.
Yeah.
And once you can do that, you can do anything. I think about Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee says, I'm not scared of the man that's done 10,000 kicks once. I'm scared of the man that's done one kick 10,000 times. And when we're young, that's kind of the key, one of the keys to life. And it just translates right into pitching also. When you know exactly who you are and what you're trying to do, and you start knocking consistency with that instead of having a new delivery every week or a new pitch every week, when you know exactly who you are and what you start to work with, and you start adding the hours and the days into that repetition, you can start doing some precision, some amazing things, and things come into place. I always tell our guys, there's a reason why Colonel Sanders looks like he does on the chicken box, and I want you to figure it out sooner than he did. And that's kind of the goal. But I think it's identity. And then once you start acquiring skill, once that one kick becomes precision and you can do damage with it,
yeah,
And then I think, confidence comes from acquiring skill. So I think it all starts with identity. And the younger I can get a pitcher knowing who they are instead of them just working out or making them throw harder or introducing a new pitch. Once identity is achieved, then I think we can really have them grow and have an amazing amount of success during the time frame that you get to coach them before they take it to the next level.
Something tells me Joseph Gonzalez is a young man who does know his identity. I mentioned all those strikeouts before. That may not necessarily be him, yet he's going to be a very dependable man for you this year.
Yeah, and once he left the College World Series, he went with champion Mike Bianco, who led our USA team and gave him 12 scoreless. But it's less spin. That's what's good about, I embrace every bit of this technology that keeps coming out. We need to know it because it can help build identity, because these young guys are still saying, why is this my identity? Is this who I am? As they have all these questions now, you can take some of these analytics and put into play and help them understand who they are. So less spin means you are a true sinker ball guy. Now, Joseph, at least coming into this year as a junior, it's like his coach, myself, and I want him, there's another amount of space to grow into, but Joseph, you are the best sinker ball pitcher in America. And if I believe that, I want him to believe that. And start using some of these numbers and everything to back. Kendall Graveman's the first one I told him, you are the best sinker ball pitcher in America. And I just spent some time recently with Kendall. We try to fish once a year or spend quality time once a year. And he's still trying to throw. He's got a good breaking ball, but he's still trying to make it consistent. College, he didn't have one. Once identity is achieved, then I think the second piece that kind of ties into this question back to the last one is once you know who you are, then start working on your strengths. We all have enough weaknesses. I know I do. But once you know who you are and you know what your strengths are, leave it at that. Kendall wouldn't be in the big leagues if he just sat there and spent all his time on his weaknesses. He's a big leaguer still to this day, coming out in 2013, because he kept drilling down on a strength, and you're just trying to pass that on. And some guys are elevating their fastball. I was talking to Brandon Woodruff the other day, another guy that I was blessed to be around in college, and that forced him, whenever he gets in trouble, it's a simple identity of being able to put a fastball in a certain spot. Mm-hmm. Man, there's confidence with that. There's conviction with that. And when you know who you are and you know what your strengths are and you keep going to them when in doubt, I've seen some guys really grow into their own.
So there's a couple of your babies, I use that word in a fun way, that I want to ask you about. They're already probably knee-deep in your program that I've seen over the last few years at these events. First one's a Jersey guy, Zach Crutchfield, a left-handed pitcher. How is he fitting in? What do you think about him now that you have him on the Plains?
I love his confidence, because I think, anybody listens to Dr. Jason Selk, that's our sports psychologist. The impact he's made in our program has been part of some of these runs. So when people's going, that a boy coach, we all know, from the background you grew up with in professional baseball and playing for QV Low and these things, that there's people around you that are making this happen, that are helping. And what he's put into our recent ball clubs of self-confidence is the number one variable to human performance, and then make no excuses. And then if we can keep it that simple, that's exactly how you build into making a difference for people.
That's interesting. I think if you were to stereotype, to be fair, kind of a Jersey attitude, that would be it.
Yeah.
The no excuses, blue collar, chest, leading with the chest out front with that confidence. That kind of stereotypes Jersey.
Yeah, and that's what Zach came with. And I think, you don't want to put anything on anybody, but you want them aiming for the highest star.
Sure.
I think we acquired and was able to get an amazing family, build a relationship. Carl Nunemaker, being from Roxbury, New Jersey, and our recruiting quarter didn't hurt being able to go up and get somebody like that interested in our program. But I think we have an eventual first rounder, eventual big league player. And he brings that confidence with us. His challenges are probably the secondary stuff, and why I think playing in the best amateur baseball in America is going to be a blessing for him the next 3 years. But he's already competing at a high level. He backed up a lot of bases this fall. He's backing up third, he's backing up home, and that's all part of the process. If he can continue to embrace that and figure out, man, this is a big jump in level. It's one thing to be at the previous level, being able to throw 93, 94, challenge somebody and it always work out, and get to a point where that 93, 94 is that's getting hit pretty hard. or there's a lot of contact there. Now he's forced to figure things out. And that's why I think just allow the game to gradually develop into somebody like Zach Crotchfeld, who I'm so glad you bring him up, because we're going to make if I believe he's a first rounder, we're going to make a commitment to development. Right. I don't care what people say as far as we don't develop guys anymore, or we're not in that game anymore. We are. Mm-hmm. You know, the 8 boys we had drafted last year, 5 of the pitchers in the top 12 rounds, none of the 8 guys were ever drafted before in their career, whether out of high school, junior college, or the previous 4-year school. None were ever drafted in their career. So I do give Carl Nunemaker, Jason Selt, Gabe Gross, I give all these men, Tim Hudson, a ton of credit for developing guys. And it doesn't have to be me, but it can be them. But 8 young men that's never been drafted gets an opportunity to pursue their dream for the first time they can taste it. I give a lot of credit. So we're just trying to put some of these techniques on to Zach now. And as long as he stays in the fight, he will absolutely, the things I started with talking about Crotchfeld, he'll figure out, get some secondary stuff going, start texturing instead of just trying to ram it by people. And what an exciting future to watch Zach Crotchfeld the next few years.
Yeah, I loved watching him pitch as a prep player, travel ball player. The other one is Ike Irish, because we got a chance. We actually went and embedded ourselves with Matt Petrie's program last year for 2 days. And, you know, it was cold, and it was indoor workouts, and it was seeing a Midwest bunch of men play the game. And it was incredible. That's, you know, he had 3 PG All-Americans on that roster. But Ike, you just came away blown away with his leadership, right? And kind of how they all look to him to lead the team. He's now with you. And what kind of a role is Ike going to be able to play for you guys in the next couple of years?
Yeah, you know, we try to get our players. I like the peer perspective. So at the end of the fall, who's MVP? It doesn't matter if you're 24, the way college baseball's gotten older, or if you're coming in as an 18-year-old freshman. And his peers chose him as MVP.
Really? Wow.
Of the entire fall. So we played some great competition. We had Lane Burroughs, who I was with at Mississippi State. He's a great head coach at Louisiana Tech. And I wanted to play him because those boys know how to play, and they play for keeps. Mitch Gaspart, great former head coach in our league, is assistant coach down there. And we just knew they'd have an older group of get-after-it type guys against us. And then we played Alabama. Coach Bohannon and those guys came down and played us, and Irish had a couple of those real at-bats against real people. And the best situation I can put him in between now and the start of his career in February. And he's comes out smelling like a rose. So, you know, like a Crotchfeld, this guy, man, I hope he's good enough to get 30, 35 starts. Ike Irish, I think he is one of our best players and has a chance to be inserted from day one. He does remind me of like a Hunter Morris, who was an SEC Player of the Year a few years ago. That was an Auburn guy, I think 2010. When he gets out, he still sees the ball. I would imagine it would be like if you're playing at a very high level and you know this is a great hitter and he got out and you're like, whew, but you know he still had a good at-bat. Ike Irish just sees and evaluates pitches as good as anybody in our deal. And, you know, after being in this SEC for over 20 years, you know who's seeing pitches. Mm-hmm. Dylan Cruz can see a pitch and evaluate a pitch. Yeah. You know, an Adam Frazier can see. Jake Mangum knows who he is. Ike Irish has that feel and ability walking in the door. And there's strength, there's power. We have Nate LaRue. I think we have the best catcher in the SEC. So can we catch Irish a game a week? There'd be a great competition when we got back. But, you know, LaRue just led a team and called pitches to the World Series. Sure. Ike's really going to have to get it going catching-wise to knock him out. But, you know, after this year, LaRue moves on. Ike's in the middle of that thing. But Ike could go to first. He could DH. He could play catch. He's going to do it all. But he's a major cog in whatever success we're going to have this season.
Yeah, he's a magnet. You can feel like he may be, if he continues to evolve as he has, one of your leaders someday for sure of that program. Thank you for your time. It's really great to connect with you.
Always great to visit.
A couple of small college guys from Alabama getting together.
The good old days.
Yeah, the good old days. Thank you, Butch.
Welcome into Nashville, Tennessee at ABCA. There are thousands of coaches here at this convention, here to learn, here to grow, and here to be with us at Perfect Game. And I'm so excited to bring in Tyler Johnson, head coach at McLennan Community College. First year as head coach, you took this role over this coming season. When you found out that you earned this opportunity. What was your reaction, and what do you think about being able to guide this team?
Oh, I mean, it was pretty fun. It was pretty cool seeing kind of how our administration went about it in the way of communicating with me through the whole process and staying with it. And obviously super thankful for the opportunity that I had being the assistant coach the last 4 years under Mitch Thompson, who's now the head coach at Baylor. And then him kind of helping guide me into this role. So it's been a whirlwind, but it's been fun.
The last 4 years you mentioned since 2018. So
Yes.
Along the way, what are some of the things that you learned, some of the tricks and the tips that you've picked up that you hope to carry into being the head coach?
Yeah, so number one, it's all about the players. All right, we got to build relationships with our players. We got to do a good job of trying to help them grow while they're in our program, and then help them after when they leave our place. It's not, we're a 2-year school, 1 to 2 year school, but we stick with our guys throughout the whole process. And that's kind of the biggest thing that Coach Thompson taught me and that I grew up learning from that side. But really just kind of really building a process and a routine with all of our guys.
Okay.
Every player is an individual, and learning kind of what makes them go and what makes them tick, and kind of helping them along their way. We're just there to guide them. It's their decisions if they want to get better or not. So
I love that answer. And I love junior colleges. I have a passion for not only the level of play, but I just think that the coaching staffs and the people who are there to support these guys are next level. They're just exceptional humans, yourself included. So the staff that you're going to be bringing along, introduce me to your staff.
So keeping our pitching coach, Peter Stark, he was our pitching coach last year, was with us. Me and him came in together. He was our volunteer pitching coach for 3 years. Last year was his first year as the full-time pitching coach. And he does a great job of really just building what they are, developing them as their own pitchers. Nothing's cookie cutter. Whatever kind of approach routine that they want to build, he helps guide them along that. And then Christian Reyes, he comes from Arkansas Little Rock. He's going to help us with our recruiting and our infield play and coach third base during the games. He's an awesome, brings a ton of energy, originally from Puerto Rico. So pretty cool on that side, bringing that aspect of it. And then have 2 other volunteer coaches, Blake Alamon and PJ Carmichael. Blake just got finished playing his pro ball career with the Brewers. It's his first year coaching, played at A&M for 4 years, drafted in the 5th round, but does a great job with our hitters and coached our outfielders. And then PJ was a graduate assistant at Illinois, was with us last year, does a great job at kind of jack of all trades. So whatever we need him to do, he does it. And he's an awesome human that connects really well with the players. But what excites me is our staff is really, we do a good job of connecting between each other. We have a good communication between us, and a very common goal of just trying to get these guys better, not just as baseball player, but as people. And you can definitely see that echoed every day when we're at practice or in the office or whatever we're doing. So
That's what I wanted to ask you, because now that you have the reins, I'd imagine that it's not just who do we have on the field and how do we execute this play, or, what's our organization when it comes to road games. There's so much more that's involved, right? And so when you get the job, you have your staff, some new guys, some returning guys. What is the conversation like with them when you finally get to sit down and say, okay, this is how we as a group are going to help lead these young men?
Really, it's just driven on, hey, we want to try to get these guys better when they leave here. So we focus on 3 areas. Number 1 is we're going to focus on as people, because at the end of the day, it's about relationships. It's about continued relationships. That's why we coach. Number 2 is they're there to go to school, so we focus on them on the student side. We help them with their grades. We help organize them, help them build study habits, and hold them accountable to things in the classroom. And then finally, the reason why they're in junior college is because they're going to play baseball. Yeah. And so we really develop on that side of things and really communicate that throughout the whole process, and just being really open. I'm a pretty straightforward guy, but at the same time, I want their feedback. I want all of our coaches' feedback, and I want to be able to echo everything and give all those guys credit for what they do on the field and with our players every day. And just kind of how we talk about it is, how are we going to get these guys better on those 3 areas? And it's very detailed, planned out, but also very flexible at the same time. And we do a really good job of communicating that with each other, and excited to see it go through a baseball season.
Yeah, and I would imagine it's helpful when you do have guys who are returning to your program, who you trust, who you like. You had mentioned pitcher Devin Bennett, and then utility player Ty Johnson, that you're excited to see them come back. How do you hope that they develop this season? But tell me a little bit about these young men.
Yeah, so Devin was one of our main starters last year. Pretty big arm, low to mid-90s fastball, good breaking stuff, unbelievable command, and really good competitor. That's kind of what sets him apart is he can sit there and pick it apart. He's unbelievably athletic and knows his body really, really well. Committed to Kansas, part of that perfect game, #1 junior college class, but does a really good job of coming in and working every single day and knowing what it takes to kind of get to that next spot. And then Ty is one of our team captains. He played every game for us last year, whether that be in center field, right field, left field, second base, third base, wherever. He can play all over the field, top of the line kind of guy, but comes with a different level of maturity than most junior college kids, and has a really awesome job of understanding his teammates and trying to communicate to them what we're working on every single day, and this, the end goal of what we want to do as a team, win a national championship, and he does an awesome job of that. So.
And you guys have that experience, right? You have won that national championship,
Yes.
2021. How do you take that moment? I love Grand Junction. Nothing makes
incredible.
me more excited.
It is incredible.
Yeah, than talking about Grand Junction and the magic that is there. But again, it's just like the grittiness of the players there and the people that are there, the love and the community. So how do you take that moment, that experience, and kind of give it to these new guys and your returning guys, motivate them to say, hey, we're going to get back there?
Yeah, it's really kind of, we just take it one day at a time. We obviously explain the big vision, right? At the end of the day, it's our players' decision if they want to win a national championship or not. It's not ours. We can sit there and try to motivate them and push them, but it's not our decision to do that. We just try to guide them through that process. But at the end of the day, it's theirs. And so helping those guys returning that were on our team last year that we went, them explaining it to them, not just us, but them explaining it to them, helps on that. And then also just always strive for it, because there's not very many opportunities where you get to, as a player, walk on a team, walk into a program that has a legit chance to go to a World Series year in and year out. And that's what's pretty awesome about us is our administration's put us in that position. Coach Thompson's helped us get in that position. I'm excited to continue that. Yeah. But just really kind of echoing to those guys, hey, this is what we're doing this for. This is why, right? It's the biggest thing for me is, and these players, is they want to know why they do stuff. In this generation, they want to know why. And so explaining them why and putting that in vision with them, but also kind of bringing it back. Hey, we got to do it this little bit at a time so where we can get to this position here.
And one of the things you'll start with is the Panama City Beach College Classic. You guys are going back, so your second year. It's going to be on Perfect Game. What do you look forward to? What's the competition like down there?
It's very, very competitive. A bunch of the top junior college teams in the country. Obviously, Arizona, Texas, Florida, Kansas all have kind of the best junior college areas for junior college baseball. And when you combine Texas schools and Florida schools and put them in a tournament, it gets really competitive. But it's really fun seeing just kind of all the talent in one spot. I think there was either 3 or 4 teams in that tournament last year that went to the World Series. So it's pretty cool to see them early in the year. It's a good test for our guys and to see where we're at and what we have to keep working on. But at the same time, it'll be fun. It's a lot of fun. We get to stay on the beach. It's a blast.
Not too shabby, right?
Not too shabby.
Tyler, I'm so excited for you first season as head coach of this team. They're a lucky group of guys, your staff as well. Thank you for spending some time with us here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited because we have coaches coming in from obviously all over the country at all different levels. And we get to now talk with Jim Schlossnagle, head coach at Texas A&M. You and I spent a lot of time together last year. I got to cover your team in a lot of different places, the College World Series being one of them. Really exciting. Your first season with Texas A&M, and you take your team to the College World Series. You make it to the Final Four, the farthest an Aggie team has made it. A lot of really cool firsts and accomplishments for that program. And I just wanted to know, you've had a little time maybe to think back about the run. Yeah. What do you take away from last year?
Well, you never doubt kids, and the game is certainly about talent, but it's, as we say, it's never about the best team, and it's only about the team that plays the best. And I think, there were times during the course of the season, during SEC play, I think we only lost back-to-back games once the entire season at Alabama. And then from that point forward, we won our last 7 series. And so, the character of our team was outstanding. I think if you look at the Major League draft, there weren't a lot of super high draft picks off our team. We could have maybe 1 or 2 this year.
Yeah.
But I felt like our team played for each other. Yeah. And that sounds coachy. ideally, you'd like to have the very best players and have them play like that. But at the end of the game, it's a team sport, and they played well for each other. And we played well at the right time, especially down the stretch in the regional, super regional, and Omaha. And as long as you are covering the College World Series, the goal will always be to get to see you in Omaha.
Did somebody pay you to say that?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, good. I appreciate that. Obviously, it was a dream, and I loved your team for so many different reasons, but you dipped into the transfer portal when you got the job, and I think that was something a lot of people talked about. How is it going to work? How are all these guys coming from so many different places going to be able to mesh together? And they did. They truly did. I mean, Troy Clonch coming in wearing number 12, I mean, being able to lead that team from the transfer portal. We talked a lot about the guys you brought in, but what was your experience first year with Texas A&M and bringing in so many new faces?
It was really an awesome life experience. Even if we hadn't made it to Omaha, I knew this time last year, I didn't know how good we were going to be. I didn't know about our starting pitching. I didn't know how we were going to catch the ball, which we really didn't do either of those things well. But I really trusted our players. Yeah. We had really good people. And number one, you have to credit the transfers for how they kind of humbled themselves coming into a new program. But most importantly, you have to credit the returning players because they had to, if you think about it, if you're a returning player and A&M didn't have a good season the year before and they lost a lot of players. So these guys are thinking, well, I'm going to get to play. Yeah. And then we bring in 11 transfers. And I think it really felt like a band of orphans, including myself, right? We only two members of the previous staff stayed on. Everybody else was gone. So everybody was kind of from somewhere else. And we're like, hey, guys, none of us really know much about this SEC thing or this A&M thing or what is yell practice or what is, the war hymn, what is the 12th man, what does that mean? And so we kind of learned it all together. And it created a really unique bond that was something I'll remember for a long time. I don't think having 11 to 15 transfers is sustainable over time. That's not the way you want to build and maintain a program. But this is a new era of college athletics. Yeah. And one of the coaches at our SEC coaches meeting said, who's been in the league for a long time, he believes moving forward, the older your team is, the more success you're going to have. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out because I think there's a lot of programs out there that went, hey, look what A&M did last year. Yeah. We can flip it in a heartbeat. Yeah. Look at USC football. Look at TCU football. You're able to flip your roster, but it still comes down to the people and what kind of chemistry and synergy you can have on your team.
Did you do anything off the field to build that chemistry?
All the time.
What'd you do? Give me
all
some
the
examples.
time. I mean, we're constantly, culture is a catchphrase today, but it really is something that even when I was at TCU, we spend the bulk of our time on connecting your team. I mean, if your team isn't connected, they don't communicate, they don't trust each other. When you get in those tough moments, they don't believe in each other, where everybody's kind of out for themselves. And so you got to kind of bring them down to be, to whom much is given, much is expected. The more you give to your teammates, the more the game is going to pay you back. And those guys truly bought into all those things. And so, we did everything from team events away from the field to Christmas parties. I mean, I don't think anything different than what other schools do, but these guys just really bought in.
I love that. Jack Moss is one of the guys who was a part of that transfer party. This will be his second season with A&M, junior season for him. But now, I mean, he's used to things, right? It's not just I'm the new guy. Right. How do you hope his role develops and his skills develop this year? Yeah,
I mean, I think he needs to continue to evolve as an all-around player. He's never going to be the speed guy, but he's been a good first baseman around the base. He needs to continue to improve his defense, continue to improve his throwing. One thing I don't want him doing is a lot of times someone gets in his ear or you read online, well, if he just hits a few more home runs, he had 100 hits last year playing in the SEC. Yeah. And so just continue to be who he is and he stays on the baseball. He uses the whole field to hit. He's a real hitter. You can't play shifts on him. He'll hit it against the shift. And so, he just needs to continue, which he has, get bigger and stronger, maybe a few more balls or doubles or homers. But, his peak man strength, is 26, 27, 28 years old. So I think those bat to ball skills they talk about in professional baseball, his ability to get into deep counts, high on base percentage. He doesn't, this is kind of our philosophy or a perfect offense is we want to swing the least, but when we do swing, we want to do the most damage.
Yeah.
And Jack is a good example of that.
Yeah, I covered your College World Series games. They're
long.
They were long. They were long. Yes, there's a lot of attention to detail.
Well, they paid you by the hour, right?
Yeah, they absolutely don't. Yeah. No, and I appreciate that. I think maybe a lost art as well for really being more selective and having that approach at the plate, I think is important. Another guy I wanted to ask you about is Austin Boast, because I love this kid. We've talked to him here at Perfect Game. An Aggie through and through. I mean, this kid, like his family breeds Texas A&M, and I know he went the JUCO route to start at Panola.
Sure.
He worked his way up. I mean, he represents so much, and you honored him with the number 12 for this season, and that's a tradition that you started last year.
It is, and the number 12 is a really big deal at Texas A&M. Started in the football program, but a 12th man is just the term that represents the fan base and the spirit of Aggie land, they call it. And Austin has always his 14 or 15 family members, his brothers on the football team. And when we were, he along with Trevor Werner and Brett Minnick, those were our three biggest recruits to get those guys back for their senior year. And one of the things we talked about is I said, listen, I'm not promising you this, but have you done everything that you wanted to do as an Aggie? Can you imagine maybe you earn number 12 and we go back to Omaha, or we win some championships, and that life experience that you may have. And so we went through the fall, and I said, you have to earn this. And it's not just me picking him. And I actually just poll our entire staff, strength coaches, academic advisors, like, hey, this is what it means to be an Aggie baseball player. Who represents that the best? And we could have done that with Trevor Werner, Jack Moss, Brett Minnick, Nathan Detmer, a lot of people. But Austin, I prefer to have it be a guy in his last year of eligibility. So that way we can entice the other guys to come back. But no, Austin, he earned that, and he's excited about it.
Oh, yeah. He's such a great kid. You mentioned Nathan Detmer, too, and his performance in Omaha. I thought it's just gutsy, and it's what you need, right? When you get to Omaha, you're like, what do you have left? Give it to me. I need it. But walk me through a little bit about the staff that you will have and we're going to get to see this season. Yeah,
I think, last year, starting pitching was, other than Detmer and Micah Dallas a little bit, it was definitely not a strength of our club. We had three good left-handed relievers, Palish, Menifee, and Will Johnson in the bullpen. So we kind of relied on that. So I think the overall talent level on our pitching staff, well, I know it's infinitely higher and deeper. But other than Detmer, we have yet to see if there's going to be one of those high-end SEC pitchers where you can really hang your hat on. But Nathan is capable of being that guy. Yeah. I think what the Omaha experience did, especially against Notre Dame, is he needed to take a leap mentally. And he's a really humble guy. He's a very strong Christian. He's competitive, but we call it the Boy Scout versus the bounty hunter. When he's away from the field, he's got the Boy Scout part figured out. It's just kind of that bounty hunter ego. Hey, when I'm on the mound, I'm the best pitcher in America right now. And so hopefully that Omaha experience, super regional, all that stuff helped him get to that point.
I don't know if I asked you, where does that phrase come from?
The Boy Scout and the bounty hunter?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a guy named Brian Kane, who is one of the leading, if not the best, sports performance mental game of baseball guy.
Okay.
And I have been at TCU. We started in 2006. Okay. So I'm his longest standing client. Now he works with hundreds of teams and companies and organizations. And so I believe every good organization, not just team, has their own language, right? And part of the language of our program is talking about the Boy Scout and the bounty hunter. When you enter our facility, there's a picture of the dude from the bounty hunter, right? When you leave our facility, there's a picture of a Boy Scout, just to remind them. They don't always get both of them right, but yeah, that's something we talk about.
I love it. I mean, I'm a huge fan of that. And I think you can carry that in a lot of different places with you. So again, we go back to they're not just ball players. You're teaching them life skills and whatnot.
Sure.
But you have had a really cool journey through college baseball. And I like to go all the way back. We're going all the way back to 1990.
Oh, geez.
At Elon.
Yeah, so I was playing at Elon, and Rick Jones, who's in the ABCA Hall of Fame, was my college coach, and I was a journalism major. I was wanting
That's right.
I was wanting to do what you're
That's
doing.
why you do such a good job.
We'll see. But he called me in and said, "Hey, we both know you're not playing in the big leagues." And I was like, "Thanks, coach." He goes, "I think you need to change your major and think about being a coach." And so he said, "I want you to take a week off of practice and come back." And I said, and I just thought the world of him. I still do think he hangs the moon. And I said, okay. So I changed my major to education, thinking especially back then, I'm going to have to go be a junior high coach, a high school coach, maybe get a junior college job. Maybe in 15 years I can be a Division I coach. Well, the year I graduated college, they changed all these rules and they created the volunteer coach position. So I was a volunteer coach in the first year of volunteer coaches. A lot of guys lost their job, but I was 22 years old. How much money do I need? And the coach at Clemson hired me right out of college to be a volunteer coach. So I was coaching guys that were 6 months to a year older than me. So I started this when I was 21, 22 years old. And then that just propelled, went from there to Tulane. We went to the College World Series in 2001. And then became the head coach at UNLV, and then 18 years at TCU.
So all of that, I mean, there are probably moments where you're like, I don't love this exactly, but this is why I'm here, right? I'm here for a reason.
Yeah.
So what do you take from all of that, from all of that journey, all those jobs and different things that you did?
Oh my goodness, everything. I mean, your experiences with the players, number one. I always say I've learned way more from players than players have learned from me.
Okay.
When you're coaching the USA team, and I'm the pitching coach with Tim Corbin in 2006, and the number one pitcher is David Price, and the number two pitcher is Jake Arrieta. Like, those guys aren't learning anything from me, but I'm watching what they do, right? So you watch what the very best players do, and then you bring that back to your campus and say, hey, if you don't want to listen to me, here's how Jake Arrieta goes about his business. Here's how Brandon Crawford goes about it. Trey Turner. These are all guys that I've coached or been around. And so number one, that, and then all the coaches that you work with. Bill Mosiello, I had lunch with yesterday, who's now the head coach at Ohio State. You just learn from each other, and you evolve over time. And part of the reason that we've had a little bit of success is because I've screwed up more than anybody. And you make mistakes and you learn from them, and then hopefully you become a little bit better version of yourself.
I like to think it's an opportunity to get to make those and then continue on, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you make a mistake at Texas A&M, everybody and their mother sees it on the SEC network. There's not 8,000 Aggies there. There's 540,000 former Aggies that are down your throat. But when you're a young coach, I'm an assistant at Tulane, or even no disrespect, UNLV. There's not, at the time, wasn't as big a following, so you get to screw up a lot, and you learn from it, and it makes you better.
All right, so you are the president this year of ABCA, and I know you had mentioned the volunteer coach. I know that there's legislation coming up here to deal with that and hopefully change things in college baseball. But is there something outside of that that you are hoping to see different this year, or where you think the game can grow?
Well, I think and I said this in the World Series, I think we're in the golden age of college baseball. Never, the level of play at all levels is incredible because of a 20-round draft and so there's more good players staying in college. There's more good players coming to college. The level of coaching, Nate Yeske, our pitching coach at A&M, has turned down 7 major league coaching jobs because the lifestyle and the compensation at the highest level of college baseball is competitive or better than even the major leagues. And that's not a slap to Major League Baseball. No. So I think we're in a position, and we're more games on TV. Programs are starting to make some more money. Yeah. So we have leverage, I think. Yeah. And most of our kids do the right way. So most of the stories, and you're lucky enough to get to tell all those stories, they're great representations of college athletics. So we need to leverage that for whether it be more coaches. We're the only sport that has a roster limit. Think about that. Yeah. We're the only sport that has a minimum scholarship. And so why is baseball treated different than any other sport? And we're having success. So we're going to try and, I mean, I don't have votes on all those things. Those come from the NCAA, but we'll certainly, along with the rest of the leadership, Craig Kylitz, we're going to try to push as much as we possibly can. I'd like to see more teams make the NCAA tournament, and so we give more opportunities to players to play for the right to go to Omaha. So there's a lot of things on the table. We'll see what happens over the course of the next year.
I feel inspired. I feel really excited for the
good.
state of college baseball. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean seriously, just look at how talented the players are, and how quickly some of these guys are going to the major leagues right out of college. And so I think professional baseball recognizes that, and it's an exciting time. It's a pressure packed time, because when you ask for all those things, you better win, and or somebody else will be coaching. So say a prayer for the Aggies this year.
We're going to see you down the road. I always appreciate your time.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks for having me.